Chapter 11:11, Keep as Mementos. Sakurai Yako and Lu Shu sat in the classroom. Both of them felt that being able to return to campus life was very interesting. They had no worries. It was as if they had returned to their youth. This was not quite accurate, as they were still young. However, one of them was the leader of the collection of gods, and the other was the head of the Weiwu army, as well as the ninth heavenly king. Thus, they were required to mature early. Now that they had returned to school, all they needed to do was to wait for the slave owners to come. Before that, they did not have to do anything. Furthermore, Lu Shu and Sakurai Yako were not worried about the mischief that the slave owners might cause. After all, Lu Shu had impressive combat power. But they did not know that they were not ordinary students. Other students had to consider their studies. They had to revise and take exams, but the two of them did not. They had come here to play. They did not have to worry about anything in school. Even the teachers were polite to them. Of course they would be happy. Suddenly, the students realized that they were inseparable in school. They ate and attended lessons together. However, after school, Lu Shu went home on his bicycle, while Sakurai Yako was sent home by the collection of gods. If Sakurai Yako was simply the heir of the collection of gods, they would not think much of this. After all, everyone loved to hear stories about a rich girl falling in love with a poor boy. But this was not the case. It was not an exaggeration to say that the collection of gods was Sakurai Yako's private possession. All the magical stones that the collection of gods had mined, as well as the weapons and mythical objects in their warehouses, were all left to Sakurai Yako to distribute. Thus, Sakurai Yako ordered men to bring over a massive safe. At first, Lu Shu did not know what was inside. The safe, which was as tall as a person, seemed very mysterious. When Lu Shu opened the box, he realized that it was filled with deep-sea white sand. He was shocked. This was the weapon of choice for Earth-type metahumans. No matter whether it was used for attack or offense, it was an efficient weapon. If a typical stone was used to attack practitioners, the stone might crack, but the practitioner would not be affected. Even though the deep-sea white sand seemed small, every single grain was as tough as a brick. Earth-type metahumans could control bricks, but few people would use bricks as a weapon as it was simply too expensive. Furthermore, its ease of control and permeability of spirit chi was a far cry from that of the deep-sea white sand. The permeability of spirit chi was what determined the standard of a mythical object. Of course, the hardness of bricks was very attractive. Even if it was hard to control, it was more fatal than ordinary stones. Thus, people had tried to use bricks. Although they were expensive, they were only expensive to ordinary consumers. In reality, many more bricks were produced than were circulated in the market. However, brick companies only produced bricks, but did not sell them. This was to control the price of bricks. Thus, a few metahumans worked together to rob a few companies and obtained many broken bricks. Later on, they realized that something strange would happen in battle. For example, people would catch the bricks and run away. For example, some people wanted to steal the bricks he had obtained. The pain that the Earth-type metahuman felt was hard for ordinary people to understand. This was not the fault of the bricks. People would also steal deep-sea white sand. This was probably what people meant when they said that treasures could cause disasters. Lu Shu sat in the Kirihara dojo and curiously asked, "Did the collection of gods mine all of this?" "Yes. All the deep-sea white sand in the trench has been mined," said Sakurai Yako. But there was a tinge of regret in her voice. There was supposed to be more, but someone suddenly robbed one of the boats. They disappeared before I could arrive. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. Then, he acted casual and asked, "Did you see what the person looked like?" "No. Although he did not kill anyone, he was far too fast." Sakurai Yako shook her head. "Even if I rushed over from Tokyo, I would not have made it in time." Thus, I don't know who did it. It might have been a water-type metahuman. Oh. Lu Shu asked, are there any other places in this world that produces deep-sea white sand? No. This is one of the collection of God's most important resources. Deep-sea white sand can only be found here, said Sakurai Yeko. Suddenly, Lu Shu was slightly annoyed. Where did Sir Xuejin obtain his deep-sea white sand from? Was it from a deal? Or the spoils of war? Either way, he had taken what belonged to the collection of gods. He did not expect someone like Sir Xuejin to do such a thing. But Lu Shu had nothing bad to say, as Sir Xuejin did not use the deep-sea white sand for himself. From the very beginning, it was a gift he had prepared for Lu Xiaoyu. Had Sir Xuejin been unwilling to admit defeat when Yeting captured a master for Lu Xiaoyu? Was that why he thought about the deep-sea white sand? This was highly probable. Lu Shu was melancholic. How many people had a grudge against him? He had received the Chang'ing sword, but it had come with a faulty sword spirit. But Lu Shu was slightly curious. Are you giving the deep-sea white sand to me? Of course, we need to leave some for ourselves and give them to the Earth-type metahumans. But doesn't Lu Xiaoyu need them too? Sakurai Yeko lowered her voice. I think she will be happy. She will be happy. Lu Shu thought about it and said, then I won't hold back. But I can exchange this for something. Anthony had advanced to the Master Realm. He definitely did not need to hide underground when fighting other masters. Thus, if they fought in the sky, the amount of deep-sea white sand might be the key to victory. Anthony did not need to obtain soil from the ground either. But Lu Shu did not have the habit of giving away things for free. He started to look through the seal of lands. Should he give her the head-twisting gourd? It had been absorbing Lu Shu's celestial powers to nurture itself. It could not always eat and not work. It had even broken a wooden figure that Lu Shu had bought. Until now, Lu Shu did not know who the wooden figure was supposed to represent. He did not know where the head-twisting gourd got its confidence from either. When Lu Shu looked at the head-twisting gourd, it hid behind chaos. It was as if it knew that Lu Shu had plans for it. Forget it. It had helped Lu Shu to avoid the thunderbolt. It might be useful in the future. In the end, Lu Shu took out 2 refresher fruits and passed them to Sakurai Yeko. Eat them. I don't know whether they will be useful to you. He did not know what resources Sakurai Yeko had, but there was no harm eating refresher fruits. Sakurai Yeko took the refresher fruits and went back to her room. At midnight, Lu Shu suddenly heard Sakurai Yeko running. He wore his clothes and got up. He saw Sakurai Yeko walking out of her room and wiping her tears. Lu Shu asked curiously, what's wrong? I wanted to keep the 2 fruits as mementos, but they disappeared, said Sakurai Yeko as she sobbed. Lu Shu did not know whether to laugh or to cry. The refresher fruits only lasted for 6 hours, unless it was placed in a special safe that prevented the leak of energy. He took out another 2 refresher fruits and patiently said, eat them. Don't keep them as mementos. He thought about it. He was afraid that Sakurai Yeko would not listen to him. Thus, he took another one and placed it in Sakurai Yeko's hand. Store this well. You have to keep this in a safe that prevents the leaking of energy. Sakurai Yeko was happy once again. Chapter 11-12, Defying Common Knowledge. Sakurai Yeko was about to return to her room. Lu Shu stopped her. I want to see you eat the fruits before you go back. Sakurai Yeko suddenly smiled. Okay. When Sakurai Yeko ate the 2 refresher fruits, she was dumbfounded. Lu Shu was not surprised. After all, he had given out many refresher fruits. All the reactions had been the same. The next moment, Sakurai Yeko whipped out her phone. Bring the sodium-potassium alloy. Many people from the collection of gods went to work with this phone call. Someone quickly retrieved the sodium-potassium alloy from the warehouse in the headquarters and drove over. Then, Motegi Toshimitsu respectfully brought it over. When Motegi Toshimitsu came in, she carefully observed Lu Shu and Sakurai Yeiko. Then, she looked at the doors of their rooms. To her surprise, they slept in different rooms. This was completely different from what she had expected. She had suspected that Lu Shu was no good in a certain aspect, but later on, she felt that this possibility was low. Thus, this young man in front of her actually had morals. Sakurai Yeiko was very pretty. Even Motegi Toshimitsu had to admit that Sakurai Yeiko's looks could make many girls jealous. Thus, it was not easy to conceal her attractiveness. Motegi Toshimitsu had sensed that there was something wrong with Sakurai Yeiko over the past 2 days. After the school festival, Sakurai Yeiko had casually asked her, "Motegi, if it were you, how would you manage the collection of gods?" Motegi Toshimitsu was one of the Class Bs with the most potential to advance to Class A in the collection of gods. Furthermore, Sakurai Yeiko trusted her. Thus, she had a lot of power. But she had never thought about this question, as she knew that the lifespan of a Class A expert was much longer than that of ordinary people. It was not clear exactly how long they would be able to live for. After all, the magically rich era had just begun on Earth. They did not have experience in this area. Lu Shu would immediately be able to answer. The lifespan of a Class A practitioner was about 800 years. Only the strongest would be able to break through this limit. When Motegi Toshimitsu heard Sakurai Yeiko's question, she suddenly realized that Sakurai Yeiko might want to follow the 9th Heavenly King to the Heavenly Network. She did not know that during the school festival, Lu Shu had said that he would bring Sakurai Yeiko to eat snacks. Sakurai Yeiko was considering this question very carefully. Back then, Motegi Toshimitsu was so shocked that she did not dare to speak. She was worried that Sakurai Yeiko was testing her loyalty. As one of the representatives from the conservative families, she knew that being so close to the emperor was like being close to a tiger. She was afraid that she would be eliminated by Sakurai Yeiko if she had said something wrong. Now, Sakurai Yeiko was like an obedient baby in front of Lu Shu. Only those who had experienced a battle with her would know how fiercely the leader of the conservatives had eliminated the jingoists. Now, Motegi Toshimitsu suddenly realized that this girl could let go of the power and profits in her grasp just for the 9th Heavenly King. She did not mind leaving the collection of gods either. If Zhang Yutong, Hao Jichao, and Nieting knew about this, they would be troubled as well. They had sent Lu Shu here to send the collection of gods a message. "We have sent Lu Shu to build relations with you. After all, our 9th Heavenly King is on good terms with the leader of the collection of gods." But they had done so to ensure that Sakurai Yeiko controlled the collection of gods and did not cause any trouble for the Heavenly Network. Sakurai Yeiko was very friendly towards the Heavenly Network. Everyone hoped that Lu Shu would be able to improve this relationship. But now, the leader of the collection of gods was about to be taken away. Did this make sense? Who kidnapped the king while building relations? What kind of relations were you building? Sakurai Yeiko had taken out a dagger from her sleeve. Lu Shu had seen this dagger before. It was the weapon that Sakurai Yeiko carried around with her, along with the cherry blossom kimono that she wore. Sakurai Yeiko asked Motegi Toshimitsu to leave. Motegi Toshimitsu politely retreated. She realized that Sakurai Yeiko wanted to test her own aptitude. Sakurai Yeiko had Class A abilities. This was not a secret in the collection of gods, but aptitude was fixed. Had there been a change? Everyone knew that one's abilities could not change. This was common knowledge. The moment before Motegi Toshimitsu left the Kurihara residence, she carefully looked at Lu Shu. She understood. No matter whether it was in the news or from information, this young man was always defying common knowledge. It was not impossible for him to defy common knowledge for Sakurai Yeiko. What was above Class A abilities? No one knew. At least, Motegi Toshimitsu did not know. When Lu Shu tested his abilities with the sodium-potassium alloy, the platinum alloy became like the stars. When Lu Xiaoyu tested her abilities with the alloy, the platinum alloy turned pitch black. After Coral ate the fruits, thunderbolts flashed in the alloy. Lu Shu did not know, but there was someone who was born with such abilities. Nie Ting. When Nie Ting tested his abilities for the first time, something strange happened to the alloy. It was different from that of Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu. The alloy in the bottle transformed into the shape of a sword. This was one of the Heavenly Network's top classified secrets. Sure, Xuejin had laughed that Nie Ting was 1 in 6 billion. No one was as lucky as he was. Until Lu Shu appeared and overturned everything Mama sure knew. Sakurai Yeiko used the dagger to cut her finger. Her blood dripped on the alloy and quickly integrated with it. Lu Shu saw pink symbols that looked like cherry blossoms forming in the platinum alloy. It was as if the cherry blossom trees along the street had bloomed in spring. Then, the wind blew, and cherry blossom petals fell to the ground. Sakurai Yeiko's eyes lit up. She picked up the bottle and observed it. How pretty! Lu Shu heaved a sigh of relief. It was done. Although this gift did not cost much to Lu Shu, it was something that Sakurai Yeiko could benefit from for the rest of her life. Although advancing to the master realm required aptitude and not abilities, you had to train to a certain level in order to be better than the rest. Thank you, Lu Shu-kun. Sakurai Yeiko bowed to Lu Shu. Lu Shu suddenly looked away, as he realized that the collar of her kimono was very wide. At that moment, Motegi Toshimitsu hurriedly returned and saw this scene. She controlled her laughter. She felt that although the 9th Heavenly King did not seem decent, he was rather gentlemanly. Sakurai Yeiko adjusted her collar and looked at Motegi Toshimitsu. Is something the matter? Sakurai Yeiko had kept the alloy in her space ring, as she did not want others to know about Lu Shu's secret. Even if Lu Shu did not mind, she had to prevent others from attacking Lu Shu. Motegi Toshimitsu said, a young man dressed in strange clothes suddenly came. He said he is here to find Lu Shu. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. Had a slave owner come? He curiously asked, did he say who he was? He said that he was one Zaifu, and that you know him. Motegi Toshimitsu said, he is very strong. Chapter 11:13, Have all the food to himself. One Zaifu? Lu Shu was very puzzled. He did not expect to hear this name on earth. Motegi Toshimitsu said that he was very strong. This was true. There were few people who were stronger than one Zaifu, even in the Luniverse. From the looks of things, had a conflict between one Zaifu and the collection of gods broken out? Lu Shu had met one Zaifu for the first time on King Lu Mountain. Back then, he felt that this Lord of Heaven was not very decent. Although the ceremonial dress he wore seemed very majestic, Lu Shu did not feel that he was like a Lord of Heaven. Or, he might not even have wanted to become a Lord of Heaven. Later on, Lu Shu saw Wen Zaifu's memorial in the library. If that could even be called a memorial. But they had never interacted with each other. Even if Wen Zaifu had winked at Lu Shu during the Sword Hut ceremony, Lu Shu felt that they would not have any future interactions. But now, he had come to Earth as well. When did he come? Where did he enter from? Lu Shu had been thinking of a problem. He predicted that the places where the space pathway could open had been opened up by experts in the past. There was one in Longmen Mountain, one in North Europe, one in North America, and one at the Changbai Mountains. Thus, these 4 pathways should correspond to 4 experts. All of them had freed themselves from the Master Realm. Although Lu Shu was not willing to chat and drink alcohol with Wen Zaifu, their relationship was not bad. But now, he could not relax. Lu Shu felt that there was something behind every strange occurrence. In the past, he had thought of another problem. Many slave owners had come from the Luniverse to control practitioners and force the mark of a slave on them. There was definitely someone controlling the entire situation. If not, they would be fighting for themselves, right? But now, when Zaifu had suddenly appeared. Which space pathway had he come from? North America? With those slave owners? Was Zaifu the mastermind behind this? Lu Shu felt a chill. But Lu Shu thought about Zaifu's memorial. He felt that Zaifu would not make slave owners force the mark of a slave on practitioners. To Lu Shu, Zaifu was someone who was bored and often asked for trouble, but he would not do something as toxic as this. But Zaifu's arrival meant that the interactions between the Luniverse and Earth had increased. If Zaifu had arrived today, who would come tomorrow? Yu Fuyao, who liked to sleep on Lu Shu's bed. Qing Kong, the Lord of Heaven who seemed very old? Lu Shu said, "Where is he? Bring me to him." Motegi Toshimitsu led Lu Shu outside. Then, near the fleet of cars, he saw Zaifu standing lazily with his hands behind his back. Beside him were members of the collection of gods, who had been beaten up. These people had been resting when Zaifu asked whether they knew Lu Shu. The members of the collection of gods wondered, "Who are you? Why did you ask such a strange question with such strange clothes? Why should we answer you?" Then, they did not even have the chance to answer him. Everyone was knocked unconscious in an instant. No one was dead. Zaifu had used just enough strength to knock them unconscious. Zaifu asked Motegi Toshimitsu to report that he would be waiting there. When Zaifu heard footsteps, he turned around. When he saw Lu Shu, he was pleasantly surprised. "Long time no see. Did you miss me? How are you? Have you been eating well? This is my first time in the land of forefathers. Did you grow up here? How about you bring me around?" Lu Shu's expression darkened. He was a dignified Lu Shu. Although he was not very decent, he could still be considered normal. Why had Zaifu become so troublesome? Lu Shu suddenly felt that the Zaifu that existed in the memorial was the real Zaifu. Zhang Weiyu said that in the past, Zaifu was the teacher of the Imperial Dragon soldiers. He was also the old king of God's most trusted subordinate. Thus, would Zaifu display his true personality in front of the person he trusted most? But he did not have the right to treat Lu Shu like this. "Why have you come to the earth as well?" Lu Shu asked curiously. At least the atmosphere was peaceful. He wanted to explore. Zaifu casually said, "A lot of people came, so I came to take a look as well." Lu Shu was dumbfounded. "That's all?" "Yes, that's all." Zaifu said, "Is there anything to eat?" "I want something to eat." Lu Shu felt that this was the most down-to-earth Lord of Heaven he had seen before. Had he come in the middle of the night to find something to eat? But could Lu Shu reject him? He was a master and a Lord of Heaven, the strongest of the masters. As the two of them spoke, Motegi Toshimitsu translated what Lu Shu and Zaifu had said to Sakurai Yeiko. Motegi Toshimitsu could go up and accompany Sakurai Yeiko as Motegi Toshimitsu could speak Mandarin. But at that moment, Zaifu turned and spoke in Japanese. "There's no need to translate. I can speak your language." Lu Shu was puzzled. He looked at Zaifu. When Zaifu saw Lu Shu's gaze, he boasted, "Aren't I amazing?"
Ha! Ha!
Lu Shu was speechless. Sakurai Yeiko understood Lu Shu's expression. She realized that the situation was not as simple. She asked Motegi Toshimitsu to wake up the staff and prepare a sumptuous meal for Zaifu. Zaifu looked at Sakurai Yeiko admiring. "How understanding. You're much stronger than that one from the sword hut." Lu Shu was silent. He led Zaifu into the Kirihara residence. Sakurai Yeiko followed behind. Lu Shu put his hands behind his back. He tapped his right thumb in Morse code. Be careful. He is a Peak Shinsong Jing who is from the Luniverse. Sakurai Yeiko looked at Wen Zaifu, puzzled. This young man was a Peak Shinsong Jing? Before Lu Shu went to the collection of gods, he had undergone a 3-day training specially arranged for him by Zhong Yutong. Furthermore, Sakurai Yeiko had interacted with intelligence personnel. Thus, it was not surprising that they understood Morse code, although Lu Shu never expected that he would use it one day. The members of the collection of gods quickly bought food and came to the dojo. The stone tables in the courtyard were unusually filled. When Zaifu ate a piece of eel, suddenly, he flared up. No wonder he often left me alone to go to the land of forefathers. He was here to have all the food to himself. Lu Shu did not know whether to laugh or to cry. What did this have to do with anything? He had thought that after he ate, he might be able to obtain some clues or information when Zaifu came, but now he was even more confused. Chapter 11:14, Sakurai Yeiko has betrayed me. While Wen Zaifu ate, Lu Shu and Sakurai Yeiko sat by the side and watched him eat. Wen Zaifu did not even seem embarrassed. He wolfed down all the food. Those who did not know would think that a lord of heaven from the Luniverse was very poor, but Lu Shu knew that Wen Zaifu was very powerful and influential. It was just that the practitioners there did not pay much attention to food. Lu Shu loved Sichuan and Hunan cuisine, but Sichuan cuisine did not look like this in the past. It had slowly evolved. There had been a movement to resist temptations and abide by heavenly principles in the Luniverse. Many practitioners felt that since they were stuck at a bottleneck, it was not their fault. There were too many temptations in the outside world. Their bodies were not clean as they fed on cereals and food grains. They felt that they were not able to advance as they had not resisted temptations and abided by heavenly principles. Deities did not have the desires of ordinary people. Many practitioners in the Luniverse felt that they had to give up on various human emotions and desires in order to train. But now, the Luniverse was normal. Why? It was because they could no longer resist, they could not bear it. If a few people were able to resist temptation and abide by heavenly principles, Lu Shu would believe this. If all the people of the Luniverse were able to do so, then it was nonsense. Not many people had such strong willpower. Thus, under normal circumstances, those with the willpower would be able to succeed more easily. As long as you persevered, you would be able to rise above others. You would only be able to portray your natural talents if you had enough willpower. Thus, it was normal that temptation was hard to control. Furthermore, Lu Shu felt that this had nothing to do with being able to advance. Although it was said that one had to be wise, pure, and determined, this was simply an attitude to be pursued. While the practitioners in the Luniverse were pursuing the highest level of training, ordinary humans pursued their desire for good food. Lu Shu looked at Wen Zaifu. Typical people would only be able to finish a bowl of noodles after many mouthfuls, but Wen Zaifu was different. He was able to eat an entire bowl in one mouthful. He felt that tonight was somewhat magical. A lord of heaven from the Luniverse ate and drank without consideration for his appearance. Wen Zaifu's appearance was rather dignified, especially when he wore his black ceremonial dress. Back then, when Wen Zaifu had appeared on Qinglu Mountain, he was tyrannical towards the aristocrats. But now, Wen Zaifu was like a childish ghost. I heard that there are a lot of fun places here. I am also rather curious about this world. Bring me around to play tomorrow, said Wen Zaifu as he wiped his mouth. Lu Shu thought about it and said, I have things to do. I have to attend lessons, and... He had wanted to say that he had to capture the slave owners, but suddenly remembered that Wen Zaifu might have sent the slave owners here. Thus, he stopped talking. Either way, he did not want to interact much with Wen Zaifu. After all, he was much stronger than Lu Shu was. Furthermore, Lu Shu did not know whether he was friend or foe. This uncertainty was like a ticking time bomb beside him. You did not know when it would explode. Lu Shu calmly looked at Wen Zaifu. He wanted to see what Wen Zaifu would do after being rejected. Wen Zaifu leaned back on the chair. I don't care. You will bring me out to play. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. Could a Lord of Heaven be such a rascal? Could you be more mature? You were a Lord of Heaven. Is there any alcohol? Wen Zaifu asked Lu Shu. Is there any more meat? Wen Zaifu looked at Lu Shu after the alcohol came. Do you still have the dish that I ate just now? Once again, Wen Zaifu looked at Lu Shu. Aren't you eating? Let me tell you, many people in the universe want to eat with me, but they have no right to do so. You are at a great advantage here, Wen Zaifu boasted. Lu Shu expressionlessly looked at Wen Zaifu as he asked one question after another. After all, he did not need to do anything. The collection of gods had prepared everything. But Lu Shu was still thinking about what Wen Zaifu had said. He had kidnapped Lu Shu and Sakurai Yako to bring him out and play. Where am I going to sleep? Wen Zaifu was full. Sakurai Yako called Motegi Toshimitsu. Motegi Toshimitsu said politely, Hello, guest. We have prepared a place for you to stay at. Lu Shu admiringly looked at Motegi Toshimitsu. This female assistant was a relief. She had prepared a place for him to stay, in advance. He wanted Wen Zaifu to hurry up and sleep. He had a headache when he looked at Wen Zaifu. But Wen Zaifu was unhappy. I will not go elsewhere to sleep. I will sleep in this courtyard. Lu Shu was puzzled. Why? What if you run away? Wen Zaifu asked with a sense of justice, If you run away, who will bring me to play? Sakurai Yako laughed. There is another guest bedroom here. You can stay there. For some reason, Sakurai Yako suddenly felt that this was good. They were able to go out and play, right? She had been thinking about how to invite Lu Shu out, and Wen Zaifu had given her an opportunity. Lu Shu was slightly annoyed. This young lady had betrayed him. Wen Zaifu smiled and looked at Sakurai Yako. Not bad, not bad. Lu Shu turned and went back to his room to sleep. He had to sort out what had happened. Suddenly, Wen Zaifu asked, Hey. Have you taken out all the books in the library? Books? Lu Shu was dumbfounded. What are books? Lu Shu suddenly realized that Wen Zaifu's thoughts were a secret. He had directly concluded that the books had been arranged by Lu Shu. But Lu Shu could not admit this. On one hand, he did not want to be killed by Gu Lingfei. On the other hand, he did not want Wen Zaifu to know that he had seen his memorial. Stop acting. I haven't said anything. Wen Zaifu suddenly furrowed his eyebrows and said, Let me take a look at you Fuyao and Qing Kong's memorials. I have something good to give you. What are memorials? Lu Shu pretended not to know anything. He returned to his room and locked his door. When he locked his door, he realized that Motegi Toshimitsu, Sakurai Yako, and Wen Zaifu had taken out a map. They were planning their route for tomorrow. Lu Shu sat in his room and supported his chin with his hands. Wen Zaifu seemed both good and evil. What he did depended on his mood. But all these were not important. Most importantly, he had the strength to depend just on his emotions. Had the slave owners been sent by Wen Zaifu? Lu Shu had no way to confirm this. The next morning, Lu Shu was sleeping in his room when he heard Wen Zaifu shouting outside. Let's go, let's go, let's go. I've taken a look at the map and plan Miss Sakurai has prepared. I have decided. We will go to Osaka today. How about it? Not a bad plan, right? Then it's decided. Lu Shu expressionlessly opened his door. He saw Wen Zaifu neatly dressed in a coat and carrying a camping bag. His ceremonial dress was gone. Lu Shu was speechless. We're not climbing mountains in Osaka. Why are you dressed like this? Wen Zaifu did not seem to care. This was a gift from Miss Sakurai. Of course I have to wear this. She said that we have to have fun to the fullest. I will be able to make use of these preparations one day. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. She knew that Sakurai Yeko had betrayed him, but he did not expect her to betray him to this extent. What had they discussed after he returned to his room last night? Chapter 11:15, The Meaning of a Journey. Lu Shu's expression darkened. This fellow caused Sakurai Yeko to defect as soon as he arrived. Was this acceptable? Of course, it was not quite accurate to say that he had caused her to defect. Although their objectives were different, they clicked well together, as the result was the same. They both wanted to go out and play. Lu Shu had to think of a way to get rid of Wen Zaifu. After much thought, Lu Shu felt that if Wen Zaifu was here, he would affect his plans. He had wanted to attract the slave owners here. All he had to do was wait for the fish to bite. But Wen Zaifu had come. If Wen Zaifu was not the mastermind behind this, the slave owners would be very scared when they saw Wen Zaifu. How would Lu Shu be able to catch any fish? Even if Lu Shu was well known for his ferocity in the Luniverse, could he be more well known than Wen Zaifu? After all, he was not stronger than a master. Furthermore, Wen Zaifu's mouth was very active. There was no rest. He even wished that Lu Shu would follow along with him. Lu Shu had to answer all of his questions. In the morning, Motegi Toshimitsu led the members of the collection of gods to send food over. The fleet of cars had become delivery men. Lu Shu sat at the stone tables. The more he thought about it, the more he got upset. He took the chance while Wen Zaifu was looking at the map to hide his chopsticks. When it was time to eat, Wen Zaifu looked at the table in front of him. Suddenly, he asked Lu Shu, "Do you believe that I use my hands to eat?" As long as Lu Shu said that he did not believe this, he would shout at Lu Shu to bring him a pair of chopsticks. Lu Shu replied, "Yes." From Wen Zaifu's distress, plus 666. Lu Shu thought about it. Did Wen Zaifu really expect him to follow the script? Then, Lu Shu looked on helplessly as Sakurai Yeko passed Wen Zaifu a pair of chopsticks. Wen Zaifu laughed out loud. "Are you surprised?" Sakurai Yeko said, "Everyone, please eat. We have a full schedule today." Lu Shu sighed. It was over. Everything was over. He could humiliate Wen Zaifu, but he could not humiliate Sakurai Yeko. While Wen Zaifu ate, he looked at the plan Sakurai Yeko had come up with. The members of the collection of gods would not follow them out today. They would not provide any support or assistance either. The three of them formed a small group and prepared to set off. Sakurai Yeko was like an ordinary girl. She stayed up to make the plans. She used colored pens to indicate where they would go, where they would eat, and where they would stay. She also wrote out their journey for the next 3 days. It seemed as if the more detailed the plan was, the happier everyone would be. It was as if she had poured all her worries into this short trip. The colorful plan was like Sakurai Yeko's colorful emotions. They were vibrant. When Zaifu looked at the plan. This Tenjin Matsuri one seems very interesting. Who are we celebrating? How strong is Tenjin? Is he stronger than a master? Lu Shu expressionlessly said, "No." Then why did he dare to call himself Tenjin, too? When Zaifu was shocked. What a way of speaking. Can you stand it? Lu Shu rudely replied, "There's nothing I cannot stand. Don't use your values from the universe to judge the earth. Here, gods are a part of religion. Strength is not a factor. Furthermore, I am not sure how strong the gods on earth are. After all, no one has seen them before. The earth was different from the universe. Everyone knew that the king of gods actually existed. Although he was rarely seen, everyone who passed by the palace of the King of Gods knew that he was inside the palace. Oh. When Zaifu nodded his head. Watching performances would be good too. Are they any good performances in the land of forefathers? Lu Shu was dumbfounded. He suddenly realized that the land of forefathers referred to China, not the earth. In the past, when someone talked about the land of forefathers, Lu Shu had thought that it referred to all the places on earth. Now, it did not seem to be what he had expected. No wonder the Luniverse used Chinese. Why are you dumbfounded? When Zaifu asked curiously, do you have any good performances in the land of forefathers? Lu Shu expressionlessly replied, breaking stones with your chest. From When Zaifu's Distress, plus 299. Sakurai Yako sat by the side and watched the two of them quarrel with a warm gaze. Suddenly, she felt that Lu Shu was real and close. When Zaifu stood up and carried his camping back. Suddenly, Motegi Toshimitsu came in and gave each of them an umbrella. It is still raining in Osaka. Have fun. When Zaifu laughed. He did not take the umbrella. Instead, he said, relax. I can disperse the rain. Motegi Toshimitsu only knew that When Zaifu was very strong, but she did not know who he was or how strong he was. When Motegi Toshimitsu heard what When Zaifu had said, she was dumbfounded. Disperse the rain and control the weather? What was this? Let's go. When Zaifu confidently walked out. Lu Shu followed behind, annoyed. Sakurai Yako asked in a small voice, do you blame me? Lu Shu laughed bitterly. How could I? Relax, I don't blame you. Lu Shu felt Sakurai Yako's caution. It was as if a dream had been shattered. How could he blame Sakurai Yako simply because of this? Hey, why don't we just fly there? Lu Shu shouted at When Zaifu. The meaning of a journey is in the route, not the destination, said When Zaifu without looking back. Someone who took all the food for himself said so, but I feel that it is very meaningful. The students of Kokushikan University suddenly realized that Sakurai Yako and Lu Shu were not in school. What was happening? Everyone looked forward to their interactions. Suddenly, someone saw the news and gasped in shock. Someone saw them on the Nozomi Shinkansen. They are going to Osaka. They are going out to play. The students were shocked. Needless to say, Sakurai Yako and Lu Shu were like celebrities to the students. They lived the lives that the students could only dream of. While everyone was attending lessons, they had gone to travel. Many young people wanted to travel to distant places, but how many people could do so? Sakurai Yako sat on the Nozomi Shinkansen. She was as happy as a bird. It was as if this was the first time she had been able to enjoy her youth. For some reason, she was somewhat grateful to the slave owners, as these slave owners had given her this opportunity. On the other hand, Lu Shu was not as happy. When Zaifu, who was sitting opposite him, clamored at the window and gasped in shock. What is this? Is this a train? How does it move? Is this a magical weapon? Is a practitioner controlling the train? Lu Shu looked at When Zaifu as if he was looking at an idiot.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty. Man, we just putting on the show. Try to look to the heavens.